We'll see what happens here. Something weird is happening. Okay, seems to be okay. Okay. And I think things are pretty good. Not bad and bad. Had a little weird thing happening. Didn't want to connect to the stream, but seems okay now. So let's hope everything's all right. Hello, everybody. For the second day in a row, we are here to celebrate radio, to talk about radio, and just enjoy our radios. And here we go. Everything's set up here. Everything seems all right. Hello, everybody. Nice to be here again. And we had a nice little show yesterday, about 3 hours and 25 minutes, something like that, last night. And we're going to talk about a little something that I did last night with listening and tracking HAARP, the experiments going on in Alaska. It was kind of a lot of fun to go around yesterday. So hey everybody, welcome. This is the Shortwave Radio show. This is the Saturday every 2 weeks that we have a show. So of course the next Saturday show will be in 2 weeks after that. But we do have one every Fridays at 2000 UTC. The next Saturday show will be on April the 21st. So welcome aboard. This is a show where we talk about radio. Lots of questions today that I will be answering from people that have actually sent me them. And I think that it's nice from time to time to go through a questions and answers session a little bit and try to just answer questions that a lot of people are just not sure, about what they are. What it means and what it all is about. And a lot of people don't know what shortwave radio is all about also. It's kind of nice to be here and help out with that. And let me just check one thing. I believe my phone is still set to ring, and I will actually just bypass, make it silent. Here we go. It's silent. So hello everybody, and hope that you all have a lot of fun with the show today. So my name is Gilles. I'm located in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and of course this show is about radio, and hope that you enjoy today's show. Of course, had a little problem with the stream. Did not want to connect for some reason, but now it seems okay. So let's hope that it doesn't have any problems. And I got some sangria, because I got a cheap bottle of wine that I kind of turned into sangria to make it taste better. So I thought, yeah, no beer today. I want something else, So cheers, everybody. And nice to have all of you on board. So I'm going to say hello. And of course, if you join in, if you have a Gmail account, there's a nice chat room available. And with some great people that can answer questions, and just a great gang. It's kind of a big radio party here, and we just have a lot of fun. I'm going to say hello to Judd Simon. Nice to have you here. KM4UBR, joining from New Jersey, USA. Pretty cool. Noise Jammer, hey there. Nice to have you here. 68WRO48 Marty. Hey Marty in Northern Ireland. Nice to have you on board. Chris Freitas, nice to have you here. And we have MDK2. We have Sheldon Harvey, nice to have you here, Sheldon, in Greenfield Park, Quebec. Also the Ed Honcho at the Canadian International DX Club that we did talk yesterday. And of course, we'll promote that once again. Great radio club to be in. Randall Clons, hey, nice to have you here. Mickey Delmanche, nice to have you on board from Alberta. I did see your post, I believe was on the DX Listening Digest group or something like that on Yahoo, with Radio Filipinas that you got a reception of, which is amazing. I don't believe I've ever heard that station here. Never. Wow. Jerry DX, nice to have you here. I'm Mapper from Moscow. Nice to have you on board. Two Hands on the Radio. Hello there. PLF Radio in France. Hello. Richard Cook in the UK. Hello there. Driver Films Shortwave. Nice to have you on board. Daniel Walsh. Hey, from New York City. Nice to have you on board. What else is there? TOC. Nice to have you here, of course. Bobby Burgess. Nice to have you on board as usual with WA5107 SWL, which is his shortwave listening call sign. And he's located in Morgan City, Louisiana. So pretty cool to have everyone here. If I haven't said hi, if you want to say hi, please do so. It's always nice to have you on board, all of you. Pretty cool. Let me just check out here. Okay. Do we have Glenn Goodell? Nice to have you here. KM4B8P. Pretty cool to have you on board. Rock Ristorante from Sweden. Stockholm is watching and listening. Pretty cool. And nice to have you on board. SM0SBT. Radio Hobbyist. Nice to have you here. David Arden. KJ4CMY in Georgia. Nice to have you here. Dexfar74. Nice to have you on board. Richard Cook says Turkey on 9635. Let's just try it for the sakes of it. I was listening to Radio France. Yeah, it's not very strong, but it's actually making it here. East Coast. 9635 kilohertz. Voice of Turkey. Free Saxon. Hello there. Nice to have you here. Mad Boy. Good evening. Hello. Nice to have you on board. Jeff. KD5QDO. Hello there. Nice to have you here. David Williamson is nice to have you here. Says after all this time I have at last remembered my call sign ZS18DG South Africa. Nice to have you on board, David, for sure. And that is nice to have all of you here, as we will answer a certain number of questions and have a lot of fun tuning the bands also. Blanchard, nice to have you here. Joe Pecky, I would pronounce it Pecky, I don't know. In Virginia, so Joe, welcome aboard from Virginia. Nice to have you here. Just wanted to talk about HAARP. We're going to talk about HAARP a little bit. PLF Radio France was on 11995 with an excellent signal. Just as I started the show, I probably listened to the last 45 minutes as they were having some news items, which was interesting. I kind of enjoy Radio France International. Nice programming, and when they are in their new stuff. I like Shortwave for that. A lot of the news that we Peachy. Okay, like Peachy? Joe Peachy. Okay. Well, guess it's like that. Thanks for the pronunciation guide. That's what I like about shortwave. When you listen to news items from stations from other countries, you tend to have news that you don't hear locally, and that is one of the big positive points of shortwave radio. Learning more of what's happening. My nephew Gabriel has been hooked to shortwave for that reason. He's he's not a DX or anything. His main purpose is, I want to listen to news from different countries. I find it interesting, and so he's been enjoying, and still has my Texan PL450, which is a nice little receiver for listening. Very, very sensitive. It's interesting because there was somebody in the comment section on the YouTube channel that was giving me kind of ranting at me, saying that the Texan PL450 is a piece of crap, and which I do not agree at all, because the Texan PL450, I've got it. It's tremendously sensitive and amazing for audio quality, and it's just one of the great little portables. I don't know, it's, sometimes you wonder if some of the ranting isn't just ranting for ranting. I don't know how many times in some Facebook groups I've saw people posting like comments that were like, oh, the Texan Chinese crap, And you're like, okay, you obviously don't know Texan if you say that, because like every company, they have, you know, below average things, but they have some of the most amazing receivers for shortwave out there. And you know, I when somebody posts something like that, I tend to, you know, it's like a general rant of what is it, just a rant against, oh well, it comes from China and you're mad. You know, let's face it, unless you pay $14,000 for a radio, there's really nothing much that's made in the USA anymore, and that's the way it is, you know. Most electronics today are made, you know, in Asia. China being a big producer of electronics stuff. And yeah, there are some cheap Chinese crap, absolutely. But there's some really good stuff coming out of China. They're getting better and better all the time. And it's you know, I don't kind of agree when somebody just posts a general, oh, Chinese crap stuff, usually. So, you know, it's a question of, I don't know, you know, and it's possible that sometimes some people will not have the same experience with a receiver, for example. So sometimes you will have somebody that will you know, maybe get one of those that ain't working well. You know, it's possible. It's always possible you get a bad one, you know. So, Knobs and Knockers, nice to have you here. Daniel Walsh, hey there. MDK2 says, had Radio Kuwait DRM with a lock for nearly half an hour earlier today. Cool. Cool, and I believe I did see, it's probably you that posted, because I did see it, was it on a Facebook group? I did see somebody mentioning listening to Radio Kuwait DRM, which I believe was 13650. So nice to have here. And Joe Peachy says, of course, with my daughters, Jess. Cool. Cool. MDK2 says, one of the more interesting English language newscasts I can get regularly is Vatican Radio 15595. 1615, when it's not talking about the Pope, that is. Yeah, well, you know what? Vatican Radio is one of the good, interesting news outlets, honestly. I believe it was in the World Radio TV, was it the World Radio TV handbook? Or maybe it was in the Spectrum Monitor. I don't remember where I've read that article. They were talking about Vatican Radio's news service, which is up there among some of the great news services. And I love when they have all that African news, because, let's face it, you have, and we have, no idea what's happening in Africa. Nobody talks about Africa, pretty much, unless there's some really huge thing going on, or, you know, Boko Haram in Nigeria's, you know, kidnapped 200 girls, or we'll hear that. We don't hear anything else. And it's kind of cool because they have a decent news. You know, I'm a little bit like you. You know, when they talk about the Pope, I don't really, honestly, I don't personally really care about it. But when they don't talk about the Pope, their news service is actually really good. And I've been having good reception also. 15595 for North America. If you guys, you know, because Vatican Radio is not broadcasting to North America anymore. But 15595 at 1615 every day has been coming in. I've heard them at least twice, 2 or 3 times this week, with a decent signal. It's broadcast to Africa, I believe, but it's making it here quite well at 1615 UT. Helton Byington, nice to have you here. K3JWA/WPE3NN in Baltimore, nice to have you here. And it's always cool to have all of you on board. David Williamson has a great phrase. One man's craft is another man's gold. Maybe that's the thing. But so true. You know, I've even, you know, you gotta be careful with reviews of receivers. I mean, how many times did we see a review of a receiver in a magazine or online? Reviews, rather average reviews, and suddenly you are noticing that you know, you buy it. And you're like, well, you know, they don't give very good reviews. Most comments are bad. And you start tuning over, and you're like, well, I'm actually surprised at how good it is. Sometimes maybe we're surprised because we buy it and we've seen the bad reviews, so we expect a bad radio and it's better than we expected, and suddenly we're happy. Probably. TOT says my coax outside is calling my name. It is going to be fixed this week, hopefully, because I will try to fix it. I was thinking, you know, it's an old coax. It's probably like a 20-year-old coax, and I think I still have 100 feet of coax RJ 59 or 58 in my in a box here. So I was thinking, well, you know what? Why not maybe just put a fresh new coax from the antenna in the backyard up to the radio here. Maybe it's gonna help out a little bit, because you know, if you fix a coax, every time you fix something, the place where the two ends meet, there's always kind of little loss. It's not necessarily a big loss, but it's, you know, and because it's VHF UHF frequencies, and the higher you go, the more loss you get it, especially in RG58, I believe. You know, it's like loss is crazy. Above 500 megahertz, loss is actually amazing. And you know, and it could be also a chance for me to maybe buy some LMR 400 or something like that, which is rated at very low loss, up to, you know, 2 gigahertz, which maybe should be what I use for VHF UHF, because it might give me more signal out of, you know, the satellites when I listen to little satellites and stuff like that. John from Shortwave says they're probably mad because they thought it would be the best radio ever. Each radio has its own quirks, and you know, there's perfect radio does not exist. Honestly, there's no perfect radio. Every radio has this, you know, negative point. You know, when I purchased my my ICOM, right, I have right here the ICOM ICR 8500. I had used a Kenwood R5000 for many years. I was used to the performance level of the Kenwood R5000. When I got this this ICOM, I immediately noticed, you know, that I love it. It's a great radio, and I will not, you know, would not exchange it or sell it for anything in the world. Well, maybe a few $1 million, because it would enable me to buy more of them. But apart from that, you know, if somebody wants to give me $1 million for it, it's gone. It's gone, because it's gonna, with the $1 million, I'm gonna fill up the whole site here with radios, and you know, I can buy another one for sure. But yeah, that's daydreaming. We call that daydreaming, I think. So, you know, when I started tuning around shortwave, I mean, it's a good receiver for shortwave, but it doesn't quite compare to my Kenwood R5000. You see that it doesn't have the same level of performance, and probably because, you know, it's roughly, you know, close to the price of a Kenwood R5000 was back then, and the fact that it's a wideband receiver, so there's some compromise. You know, wideband receivers, I mean, there's extra circuitry in here for everything I will listen to. But if you take it as a whole, if you take it as a ICOM ICR 8500, a wideband radio that goes from, you know, 30 kilohertz all the way up to 2 gigahertz, you got to put that in a great radio, because it's the best. I like saying it's the best scanner I've ever owned, you know, because it's in the VHF UHF range. It's amazing. It's sensitive. It's great. It has, you know, upper lower sideband also on all frequencies, which is nice. Something I didn't have before for the you know, for the VHF range and UHF range. And if you take the whole aspect of what that radio is, it's actually a great radio. It's one of the best, and probably one of the best, if not the best, that I've owned. But I do see, you know, with my level of listening and 35 years of tuning around with a Kenwood R5000 for, what, 20 years of that, I expect a certain level of performance from a radio, especially when you spend $2,000 for one. You start thinking, well, that thing better perform, because two grand for a radio, you don't spend that every day, and you know, a lot of us actually spend that once in our lifetime, and just use that. I was lucky enough to spend it twice, spend it for a Kenwood R5000 and spend it for a ICOM STRD 500, you know. But it's not everybody that can do that, and you know, frankly, right now, I would not have the money to buy a replacement for that. You know, like, let's think of the ICOM STRD 8600, which is a beautiful radio that I would love to own and have in my hands. But you know, there are other priorities like paying the rent and trying not to put the credit cards too high also at the same time. So you know, it's crazy. MDK2 says, when people rant about stuff being Chinese to mean cheap crap, I just roll my eyes. There's a guy who swears by Japanese, and I remember when saying the same about Japanese back then. Well, you know, there was a time, you know, one of the movies that shows that fantastic side of it, Back to the Future, when the guy says, you know, when the professor says, oh, no wonder this thing failed, it says made in Japan, and Marty in the movie says, what do you mean, the best stuff is made in Japan? Japan had the same curve that China is having. They started off by having cheap crap. There was a lot of cheap Japanese crap, and as time went by, they got better and better, and they started really pushing really amazing quality stuff. China will have the same curve. It has the same curve. It starts off with really cheap stuff, but you know what? China is going to and will make amazing electronics also. Free Saxon says most Japanese stuff is made in China. Yeah, today, absolutely. Neil Toombs, nice to have you here. Says, in a static caravan in South Devon near Plymouth, watching you on phone. Cool. Yeah, pretty cool here. Everything's pretty well here. Manny CV, hey, nice to have you on board. MDK2 says, get a Lamborghini with an ICOM R8600 installed. Yeah. God. Sheldon Harvey says, we got 2 new CIDX members yesterday through your YouTube show, plus 1 new request for a sample bulletin. We welcome Ivan in Florida and Don in Michigan to the Canadian International DX Club. Yay! That's cool. That's cool. We've been able to have a few new subscribers thanks to that. And don't forget, guys, CIDX is a great little place for a Canadian club. Let me just lower that for a second here. Go here. I believe I've got it somewhere on the desktop. If I can find it somehow. I believe there was, and I'm trying to find it, but I don't find it, so I'm sorry about that. But I was showing yesterday the cover of the April edition of the Canadian International DX Club Bulletin, which is very nice, and you know, it's inexpensive, $10 a year for membership. Plus, you get a great publication through email every month, $25 for 3 years. All you got to do is contact Sheldon with cidxclub@yahoo.com. That's also the email for payment through PayPal if you wish, and cidxclub@yahoo.com. You can ask for a sample copy. Don't ask twice, you'll get only once. So if you've not asked for one and are curious to see it, just ask. Sheldon will do it with pleasure. Also, don't forget, for those that want to listen to the International Radio Report, it's a 30-minute show about radio. It's on Sundays at 14:30 UTC. And tomorrow Sunday I'll be part of the show with Sheldon and David. So it's going to be kind of cool to be there. And I'll try to kind of be there every 2 weeks. I'll try to keep a rhythm of every 2 weeks. Go and have my little moment at the microphone at CKUT. And you can listen online to streaming on ckut.ca. Stream live at 14:30 UTC. The show starts on Sundays. You can also go on ckut.ca and check out the archives. There you will see about 3 months of shows, so it's kind of cool, and want to join in and listen. It's a great show about radio, and I'll be there tomorrow, so pretty cool. Indicate to ultimately it comes down to the manufacturer. Some cheap things are going to be built cheaply, and some will be built well, and country of origin means nothing there. Oh, absolutely. Zach Antle, nice to have you here. Free Saxon says, yes, my Yaesu FT450D arrived a few weeks back. The only part made in Japan is the SWR ATU. So the, there's less and less. I mean, Japan is having the same problem that Canada and the United States have in general, is that it just costs too much to make things here. So, that's why things are made in China. Okay. TOT. If you don't fix the coax outside this week, my mother will chase you with a broomstick. If that would happen, I would actually have a live show while she's chasing me. And will probably be a nice viral video. Cosmic Lettuce, nice to have you here. Pretty cool. KC9KUH, just got a new computer, and it's really nice. Running as SDR, full 10 megahertz bandwidth. Cool. That's cool. Yes, we will talk about software-defined receivers today, the radio hobbyist, absolutely, and we got questions regarding that. So, of course, and I'll be checking out a few models for those that want to try it out, and pretty cool. Donald Hosmer, nice to have you here. W8SWL, pretty cool. David Williamson says a Barlow Wadley is a good boat anchor, but stable for its day. It's like this thing, the Grundig Satellite 6000 transistor 6001, or also known on Grundig Satellite 210. This radio is a solid state receiver made in 1969, and all I gotta say with this radio is that it is so stable. I am amazed that a 1969 transistor radio is so stable on the frequencies. It's amazing. I gotta tell you that. It's really amazing. Dan Walsh, hey there, says always a voice for reason. A voice of reason. You gotta. There are some crap stuff, yes, but it's not just crap. Nice to have all of you here. Steve and no Maxine today. Oh, Steve. And early Sunday morning here in Australia. Cool, nice to have you on board. Bullseye 101. Do you have any remote control for your SDR? No, it does not have a remote control. Actually, I control it with my wireless keyboard here, with the mouse pad kind of on the right side here, which is how I control that. There's no control or remotes. And so have a nice day, Bullseye 101. Bill K3WDR, hey there, nice to have you here. Yeah, happy Easter to all of those that are actually celebrating this weekend. Absolutely. Ed Blassie, nice to have you here from Oakland, California. William Helms from Florida, nice to have you here. Says even speaker coax will work so long as it's at least the same as 18 AWG wire. So anyways, I'll be checking that out. I'll see what I have. LMR 400 is kind of expensive, so that's also something that that you got to take into account, honestly. So KC9QH says, I can't get the hang of HD SDR. I have had good luck with SDR console and SDR Uno. Yeah, it all depends. I like HD SDR, honestly. It's my favorite. I've tried, well, actually, I haven't been able, and even though it's supposed to work, I haven't been able to have SDR console work with my Fidry SDR, and it should, but for some reason it can't connect, and I don't understand why. And the software that I use, if I don't use this, will be SDR Sharp. SDR Sharp is fun for one thing, because there's a lot of plugins for SDR Sharp that add all sorts of capabilities, which is kind of cool. But HD SDR is kind of my favorite right now that I use. I like the looks and the way it works, and it works well. And I've imported in the frequency manager the EIBI space.de full frequency list. So it's fun because you can just go through by time, by frequency, whatever, and you can immediately see what you're listening to or tune something from the frequency manager. I kind of like that as an option for this software. 3830 Radio Man, hey there, nice to have you here. Richard Cook says there's a pirate that he's receiving in Europe, 3900 kilohertz. TOT, do you have radios only in your shack or around the house? Want to know if I'm the only person who has a shortwave radio by my bed, can't sleep without it. I've got a lot of radios, and almost in every room. Right now the living room doesn't have one, but usually there's one. But I have one in the kitchen, one in the bedroom, but I kind of alternate in the my receivers. So basically what happens is I will, I like kind of doing a rotation of all my receivers because I got a lot of them. So from what happens is, I'll have, for example, my Texan PL680 as my kitchen radio for a while. And then I get, kind of bored with that being there all the time. So I'll have, my, the Grundig S450 DLX. Or I'll have the Degen D1103 or the Sangean ETS505. I'll do a rotation, Grundig GP5 SSB. And so by doing a rotation like that, it's like there's, I always have a different radio. Same in the bedroom. I usually don't have one in the bedroom per se, but what I will do is if I decide I want to go to bed but listen to the radio, I'll bring one of the portables. I have a wire that's around the window frame in the bedroom, and so what I do is I bring one of the portables and I just clip it with an alligator clip to the antenna when I want to listen to shortwave in one part of the like in the bedroom, for example. But I don't do a lot of listening in the bedroom for several reasons. One of them is the bedroom here is quite noisy. There's a lot of radio frequency interference, so it kind of makes listening a little less interesting for me. But one of the things that I've been doing a lot, because my ephedry SDR that's running is a network device, I tend to sometimes just take one of my laptops and listen and tune around to the SDR, because it's plugged to the best antenna I've got, which is the sloper in the backyard. So it often receives better a lot of the things I want to listen to. So I've started doing that a lot, and that's one of the advantages of an SDR sometimes is if you put it on a network like the ephedry, or program it to be available from another computer. It's cool because you use whatever computer you have or a tablet, you load the SDR software. So I've got HD SDR installed on every PC that I own, so I can actually, I decide tonight that I do something for for supper, and I want to listen to the radio. Well, either I'll use a portable, or sometimes I'll just bring a laptop, fire up HD SDR, and tune through the ephedry SDR that's right here in my office, that is plugged to the sloper antenna in the backyard. So I'm getting a little I would say that I'm kind of using my software defined radio a lot more than I ever thought that I would use it, because I'm getting used to the positive points of having an SDR, and that's the display here, which is amazing because you can see you have a visual of the signals, and we're going to talk about that also. Donald Hausner's got a Sony 7600JR bedside it says to lull me to sleep. So with the sleep timer, yeah, that's nice. I often put the timer when I bring like my Texan PL680 or stuff like that. Often I'll put it on the timer side, and I'll put maybe 2 hours, 120 minutes. Tune you around. Sometimes I'll leave it on listening to something, amateur radio stuff or whatever. I usually put it in the timer, so if I do fall asleep while it's working, it's going to shut down by itself. But most of the time I shut it down myself, because it's like, okay, time for bedtime, and that's it. Steve says he uses SDR Uno for shortwave, HD SDR for FM band, and SDR console for VHF, UHF. Like them all for my RSP2. Interesting. Is there, maybe you can explain it, is there a reason why you prefer such a way of doing things for, the software that you use depending on the band you use? Is there some advantage for you for the shortwave, using SDR Uno for shortwave, for example, rather than the FM band and so on? What would you say is the reason why you choose to have different software like that? It'd be interesting to talk about that. Mark Carson, KM6NHH. Nice to have you here, Mark. From bed in Northern California, resting after a long hike while monitoring repeaters. That's nice. That brings me, reminds me of the good old times. Good old times when I would take walks with my portable scanners, and for hours, come back home tired, but had a lot of fun listening to local repeaters and all sorts of VHF, UHF communications. So Radio Obvious says, I totally rotate radios all the time. Keeps it interesting. Yeah, absolutely. It's like it, and you know what's fun? When you take or use a radio you haven't used in a while, it's almost like having a new radio in your hands. It's like, oh, it's cool. I'm kind of find it cool to tune that radio today, and I often will keep them for a couple of weeks, tuning that radio in the kitchen or whatever, and I will switch. Yeah, it's not my phone. It's the home phone that's ringing, driver from shortwave. That's the home phone in the living room, because my smartphone is muted. It just is in vibration mode right now. Steve, that would probably be fast load, one of the fast load jokes, doing that, like texting me or calling me because he knows that my phone isn't off, just to be do a little joke. It's his style, so that could happen. But he doesn't have my own phone number from the living room, which is a very different. I got 2 phone numbers, and they each have their purpose. And when somebody says, well, you should answer the phone, I would say, no. If it's really urgent, they have my smartphone number, which is D1 for me. Jerry says International Space Station will fly over Montreal in about 10 minutes. Cool. I haven't had the time to check out the International Space Station this week for the slow scan TV stuff. Unfortunately, I wanted to try to decode the slow scan TV pictures. Had absolutely no time. No time. What else is there? What else is there? PLF radio still using. Okay, coming down. Using the SDR make you less and less your big icon. You know what? I gotta say that I have been neglecting my ICOM quite a lot since I've used the ephedry. And it's simply the ease of use, and that's one of the things about software-defined radios that's kind of interesting. You get used to some of the characteristics, the positive stuff around it. And you know, the Waterfall is truly amazing. So right now I've got 600 kilohertz of spectrum. Okay, I don't put much more than that because it gets too compressed on the screen, and at some point it's almost unusable when there's too much information. I've chosen about 600 kilohertz, but I could I could go higher than that if I want. And also, you know, not to stress out my router at the same time while I'm actually doing live shows, because let's face it, right now my router is, you know, getting data for this, which is like gigabytes per hour from the ephedry through my network. Plus, I'm doing a live show which is sending out roughly about, you know, 2 gigabytes per hour to upload on 1080p. So my router is already working quite full speed. But yeah, you know, the software defined radio, you get to a point where it's difficult to not be a fan of one. When you got a good one, the ephedry being pretty good, I gotta say, you get to a point where you can't live without that Waterfall. You know, I don't know how many things I've received in the past year that I received because I've seen it appear on the Waterfall while I was tuning, that I would have missed on the ICOM, honestly. Because the ICOM, you got to tune, and if you stop on a frequency, you don't see, you don't know what's happening around it, you don't know what's happening on other frequencies. Where here, you got all that information. And software-defined radio is great for that, because you know when something appears, when something's happening. You look at the Waterfall, and you know where the signals are, and you know you have a tendency to click, oh, I want to see what that signal is all about. So here we got a big one, which is a DRM signal, by the way. And what is it? Well, you click on it, and you've got something which is a DRM signal. I pretty much, just by the width, I don't know how large it is and what it looks like, this looks like a DRM signal, pretty sure, and it sounds like one too. So, you know, you just click on one frequency, like here, 9460, there's something, and there we go. You tune to whatever was there. I gotta say, that is such a pleasant thing to do, that it, you know, it kind of tells you, well, older radios, you know. But one thing I want to do, I bought myself a new 12-volt lead-acid battery, rechargeable battery. For the first time this summer, I will bring my ICOM to Perry Island and tune around at Perry Island with the ICOM. So I thought, why not turn this into a receiver that I could maybe use, not just here, everywhere else. And since I don't have a really good SDR for VHF, UHF, what I've been mostly doing, honestly, is listening to shortwave with this, but listening to the VHF, UHF spectrum with the ICOM, because it's so good at it. And you know, it I've got, you know, an RTL SDR, but frankly, the $10 RTL SDR, even though it's wideband, it doesn't work as well as my ICOM for listening to signals. But I gotta say, I've been neglecting the ICOM quite a lot, and you know, I've even had some comments on that I need sometime to go back here, because I've had a few people on the channel say, you know what, it's cool when you post your videos of whatever you're catching or listening to with the SDR, but I've had quite a few of you telling me I miss seeing your ICOM ICRD 500 in action. So I have to find a way to make all of that work together, honestly. It's crazy. It's really crazy. KC9KUH says, I find myself using my SDR more than my HF rigs. Yeah, because at some point it's so cool, all the information you get here. And, you know, one of the things that makes me use my SDR a lot is also the fact that I can tune it from another room using a portable computer. So that is also something. Last summer, I found myself, every summer when I sit down in the backyard and balcony, I always bring myself a portable radio usually. And I put it on the barbecue. And of course the barbecue is not working. And would listen with the portable receiver. But last year I found myself pretty much going to the balcony in the backyard and bringing over my laptop and listening to my Ephedry SDR via, of course, the network, because frankly it was the best receiver. If I wanted to do the same thing with my ICOM, well, you got to take it off there, unplug the antennas, power supply, take everything, go into another room or backyard. If I do this on the balcony, I need an extension cord because there's no way to power it without on the balcony itself, and it gets such a hassle that at some point you like, well, it's kind of easy to just take my laptop on the balcony and tune around the software-defined radio. So there's a lot of things that are, and it's software-defined receivers are the future of radio. One of the questions I got here, so the guy is named, he's calling himself Ultimate DX guy, and he sent me a message. Is on my official Shortwave Radio at gmail.com email, and one of those really long emails that explains tons of things and asks questions. But one of the things that guy says is, I've seen your videos and I've seen your live shows where you're using that SDR thing, and I don't kind of like that because it's a lot of people are ranting against SDRs sometimes because they don't understand fully what a software-defined radio is, that we will explain a little bit here. But also some people just, some people are stuck in the past and never want to advance in the future. I'm not one of those. I'm one of those that, the future is here. And yes, I do like tuning around my ICOM. No, I will never sell it. My ICOM's here to stay. But I gotta say, software-defined receivers are kind of really cool and have so many positive points for them that it's hard not to move to that new technology. And I'm sorry, but this is still listening to shortwave with a radio. I don't agree with whoever and whatever when people say, well, I don't agree, that's not shortwave radio anymore, and the hell with it, if that's the future, I'm not going to listen anymore. It's like, what? Do you like shortwave radio, or do you just like portable receivers? Why is it that not using an SDR is a problem? And I see that a lot in some of the posts. I've seen people go in really ranting discussions of, well, you won't see me using that. Well, I'm sorry, but I don't understand why you would not want to use this. I don't understand why it's such a problem for you. There is no official shortwave way of listening to shortwave. It's as if, oh well, shortwave radio listening has to be done with a little box with buttons on it. It can. It's what the majority of people still do. It's one of the ways you can do it. And I don't agree with people that say, well, that SDR crap and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, if you're not happy with that, it's like, you can still buy a good old portable radio with buttons and, buy yourself some tabletop. And one of the things that's funny, because in his post, he says, well, I am buying myself, I'm soon to buy myself an ICOM ICR8600. I don't want that SDR stuff. And it made me giggle because it's like, yeah, but do you understand that that box, which is the ICOM SCR8600, is in reality a software-defined receiver? It's a receiver, and it is a software-defined radio, but they added a front panel with controls. So it looks like an old-fashioned radio, but in reality, it's a computer and a software-defined receiver in it. And that's why there's a software in it that can actually be upgraded. And that's also why it does so many things compared to my icon here, for example. Because it's a computer. This is an analog radio. It's not a computer. Yes, it has a processor and everything, but it's doing a specific set of functionalities, and that's it. The 8600 is a computer. You're programming that box with the new software when you download the firmware update. It's a computer. It's an SDR. And when I kind of replied back, I said, it's funny because that 8600 that you want to buy is a software-defined radio. It's just that because there's a box and there's buttons, you have the impression you're buying a good old-fashioned radio. Well, no, it's an SDR, honestly. So if you're against SDRs, maybe you shouldn't buy the 8600 because you are buying an SDR with buttons. Scott Collier, nice to have you here. Pretty cool. Steve says, I got a different type of interference in the bedroom. Sometimes it goes away, and when she says yes. Well, there's many things that can happen in the bedroom. David Williamson says, people had time to build quality equipment in the old days. I have a valve receiver from an ore carrier. 125 volt set, it warms up the whole shack. Oh man, I remember when I had the I had a World War II Canadian Forces shortwave set, a really huge thing in a rack, and there was the power supply on the top, the radio at the bottom, a huge thing with tons of buttons. That little fluorescent green V that moves depending on the strength of the signal and everything. And I remember that in the summertime I would listen when I guess I was 14 or 15 years old back then. I was listening to shortwave with that. And we didn't have air conditioning when I was young. So in the summertime when it was like 35 outside, 34, 33 Celsius, it was 35 in the house. And I would fire up that thing and probably warm up the house even more because it was just so running so hot. You couldn't even touch the top. It was too warm. I could have fried an egg on it, pretty sure. Mr. Frank 632 from Wales, nice to have you here. Todderbert, nice to have you here. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So Steve says SDR Uno settings are a bit when changing to VHF, UHF, just set all the gains, etc. for each software to the bands. Don't have to play too much. Yeah, okay, I get the hang of it. It's like it's a little bit like me here. Somebody was telling me the other day, why do you have 5 browsers installed on your PC? And I said, well, when you have 5 YouTube channels that you take care of, you get tired of, I have to log out of this one, to log into this one, to log out to this one, to log into the other one. And so you just have 5 browsers with each having its own YouTube channel. So like that, if I want to put a video up for the official shortwave channel, I just fire up Opera. If I want to put one up for my Windows channel, I fire up Microsoft Edge, and so on, honestly. So yeah, I totally understand what you mean now. Didn't think about it, but yeah, I do understand. Why tweak all of that, and why start. It is up to a certain point a hassle to sometimes tweak everything so everything works right, and then you go back to shortwave and you got like, okay, what was the setting, the best setting? I don't remember, So Bill K3WDR, hello there, says got a Nikon 7300, lots of features. Yep. Absolutely, these are great receivers. Great receivers, absolutely. So David Williamson has coax into all the rooms, just plugs the antenna lead into it. So yeah, that's the way to do it. That's the way to do it. Jerry says, time for a Nikon R8500 grand giveaway. Yeah, right. Maybe in your dreams, Jerry. Free Saxon says, SDR, yes, you can see what's happening and where. Exactly. Exactly. It is really, really, you know, really, really interesting. Fabrice Simona, hey there, nice to have you here. From Japan, nice to have you on board. Two Hands on the Radio says, SDR is equivalent to an electronic fish finder for radio. Yeah, maybe, kind of, but not necessarily, because an electronic fish finder, you might see where the fish are, you might not have any fish biting. There's still a sports thing about it, you know, where on an SDR, that signal's there, you click on it and it's there. Casper Peterson, nice to have you on board. Says, my Ethan Grundig has stopped receiving signals in shortwave, medium wave, and long wave. The FM band is still okay. Anybody know what to do here? First of all, I would reset it. There must be a reset, little reset hole somewhere that you can put a little object into it and reset the receiver. Second, I would take the batteries out and leave it like 24 hours without batteries and put batteries back in. But the other last thing that could happen is it could be the transistor at the you know, first amplifier, RF amplifier, that has blown up. That would technically affect long wave, medium wave, and short wave, and not the FM band, because it's a different circuit probably. So we got to be careful, you know, especially in the winter time. There's a lot of static, and when we pick up receivers, portable receivers, be very careful not to touch the antenna with your hands if you rubbed yourself on the sofa, or, you know, in your bed or whatever, because it might zap the static electricity might actually zap your you know, circuitry. It's be very careful with that. I often try to touch a metal object before I'll touch one of my receivers, especially in the winter time, because it's extremely dry here. You know, I think last time I looked, I think the humidity level here is like 25% in my home, because of the all the electric heating. It lowers the humidity in the house, and when that is 25%, I just sit down on the couch and get up, and I am a human battery. I've got a static charge, and if I touch something, you know, sometimes I want to pet Paul the cat, and it's like, wow, that zap of, you know, electricity. So but got to be careful. If it's broken because it blew up the last stage of maybe the RF amp or something, I don't know, you know, a receiver like that, the Satellite 750, I don't know who could repair that, honestly. A lot of I'd say that most of the electronic guys would not even dare touch that. So kind of interesting. The Drifter UK, nice to have you here. M3CSB, Steve, nice to have you on board from the UK. Well, when I said Steve, I almost whistled. Steve. So I gotta say, I gotta say, I don't know if anybody can fix that 750. Radio Hobbyist says, for a newbie, try a USB stick first to see if you like SDR. If you do, upgrade, because the sticks aren't really very good for shortwave. The RSP1 and a Fedry range SDRs are quite good. And Jerry's listening to the International Space Station. You know what? It's one of the questions I've also gotten that I wanted to address today a little bit. Is so you know, how do I get myself into the hobby of software-defined radios? And you know, one of the big problems with that is you know, first of all, you need a little bit of technical knowledge to work an SDR. An SDR, that's the first thing you got to understand, is that using an SDR is not something you'll find that's gonna work just like magic. It's not like plugging a radio in and just using it. It requires you to have a little bit of technical know-how with your computer. But once you pass that, there are a few things. You can actually start up with what's called an RTL SDR, which is a small little dongle, barely bigger than a USB thumb drive or USB key. Those are, you know, $10, not even $10 on Amazon and on eBay. You get them for $10. Basically, these are receivers. They are the basic entry level. Most of them don't have shortwave capability though, but if you want to try your hands at receiving VHF, UHF signals, it's very inexpensive to try it out, honestly. It's very inexpensive to just have fun and play with an SDR. If you want something a little more expensive that would have shortwave capability, I gotta say that a RTL SDR, and talking about that, just want to show this to you guys. Don't know yet if I'll do a raffle for this one, but look at this, guys. Look at this. I've received, thanks to a viewer, a good working order RTL SDR2, which is this little thing. Now, believe it or not, this is a wideband receiver. This receives medium wave, AM band. I believe it starts at 1 megahertz. Shortwave with the up converter, and VHF, UHF up to 1.8 gigahertz. So I've got one of those, guys, and I was thinking, do I do a raffle? Do I do not? I haven't decided yet. I tested it out, works fine. I don't know, we'll see what we're going to do with this one. So this, if you wish to try out, is about $40. And for $40, you got an amazing little device. I gotta say, it's a little, you know, tricky to set up, because you got to set up right. But once you have the hang of it, you have shortwave capabilities on this one, and it's about $40. This is the Soft 66 RTL2. There's the RTL3. So that's a step up from the basic $10 software-defined radio. And of course, there's the more expensive ones that are better, like the Fedry or the you know, SDR Play, RSP1, stuff like that. More expensive, but better performance. Basically, you know what, Casper Peterson, what you're telling me is that even the airband is not working. I have the impression that it's the AM, maybe the AM detector, because when you're in FM it's okay, and that uses the FM detector, which is different. But every band that you mentioned, long wave, medium wave, short wave, and the airband, all use AM mode. It's as if the AM detector is as a problem. But do try to reset. There must be a way to reset the Grundig 750. It might just need to be reset and will work fine afterwards. So I'm just gonna check something here, because I see that There's something happening here. Okay. So, anyways, just find a way to reset it. I would guess maybe you just need to do that. KC9KUH says, do you find it a lot easy to do videos with the SDR compared to pulling out the camera and setting up for the icon? Well, it is. It's not, except for the audio maybe. I can't say it's that complicated to set up the camera or anything. But of course, with the SDR, you set up, a screen recording software, and it is quite easy, of course, to tune around and make a video of whatever you're listening to. It is quite easy, no cameras, no nothing. You just do a screen record. So yeah, there is some advantages, but it's not that bad to honestly have. It's not that bad to honestly have put the camera and do things. And especially now, I use my phone. A lot of the times, I use my phone, which does great 1080p videos. Honestly, my Galaxy S7 can even do 4K. So it's kind of an easy way to. It's not that complicated to do a video, honestly. David Elkins, nice to have you here. Pretty cool, pretty cool. So I don't know, kind of interesting. And the K2 says there's always people who get all old-fashioned and feel insecure about that, so they disguise it by claiming that the old way is a better way. Yeah, Riark Ristorante says, am I stuck in the past, Jill? I guess my Amerland. It's okay to be stuck in the past also, okay? That totally is okay to be stuck in the past. So, it's Thunderbird says, get people upset with my CC Wi-Fi radio video. Yeah, you can't please everybody. Jerry listening to AMS on 14249 upper sideband, clear reception. 3 Sison says, think you can use and enjoy both SDR and conventional shortwave radios, iPower and QRP, even build your own. Absolutely, and you know what? Honestly, it doesn't make me not use my radios. I have a portable receiver on all the time. Today, while I was making my dinner, I brought my CountyCon GP5 in the kitchen, started tuning around. I mean, it doesn't prevent me from using good old receivers. I mean, it works great, and it's fun. I think it's a compliment. It's like the internet. What do we hear and what do we often hear about shortwave radio and the internet? The internet killed shortwave. The internet is bad. Shortwave is, you know what? The internet for me is not what killed shortwave. And the best example of that, how many broadcasts from the international broadcasters are on shortwave are now on the internet? Not a lot of them. Very few of them. And a lot of those that are on shortwave don't even have a podcast or a streaming of their own programming on the internet. So it's not that. And I honestly do not believe the internet killed shortwave. What kills shortwave is somewhere else. It's part of the noise we've got that's been so high now that makes it more difficult to listen in to stations. It's money, costs a lot of money to broadcast over shortwave. Then when we put things into context, like Radio Canada International, I believe the budget was like $16.5 million a year. In the scheme of things of how much money is spent in Ottawa by our governments, it's such an amazingly small amount. Just our famous Justin Trudeau trip to India is just looking at that and you're like, yeah, and you killed Radio Canada International. Thank you so much. It's things like that. I mean, there's a lot of things. There's the money is a big part. Money decides a lot of what's happening, honestly. And I don't agree the internet has broken shortwave. If it has done something, and this show is an example of that, it's not broken shortwave. It's a complement to shortwave. It's something that you add to help into your hobby. I love the internet. I've never been in contact with so many people that listen to radio ever before. I mean, if we go back before the internet, you know, I'd be a member of, I would say, CIDX club, but we're all far apart. And I mean, even if, like, you know, there are tons of people listening, how many people in my city were listening, or are shortwave listeners, and so on. And basically, there was not a lot of information, and information was outdated. You know, I remember buying, that always made me laugh. I remember buying the Popular Communications magazine, which always for me was the perfect example of how outdated magazines were back then. And you look at the shortwave schedules that they had in the central pages, and you're like, wow, we're 2 months in the new schedule season, and they still are using the old schedules from, you know, the A season or the B season or whatever. And you're like, okay, that's kind of useless schedules finally. And, you know, the internet is fixing that. There's, all the schedules are easy to get. You know, I go to EIBI Space, I check out, oh, what's this transmission here? You find it immediately. I've never been so much in contact with so many people. I mean, look at all of you guys. Look at all the people I've seen in the Facebook groups, all the people that I see in different other shortwave websites. If one thing the internet does is actually make our hobby 1,000,000 times more interesting, 1,000,000 times easier and better to use and to do. So, you know, I don't agree when somebody says, oh, the internet breaks shortwave. No, I don't agree. I'm sorry. Don't agree with that at all. At all. So, you know, yeah, absolutely. As David Williamson says, if people do not embrace the future, they are the ones missing out. Absolutely. Absolutely. MDK2 says, Levy says, I'm going to get a lot of enjoyment with my portable and my satellite 750. I do also. Totally. I have as much fun tuning around the bands on my portable receivers. I can spend a whole evening tuning around on my ICOM. And I still have a lot of fun. It is a compliment, you know. Marcel, nice to have you here. Chris, that looks cool. Where do I get one? The if you look at the Soft 66, for example, this one, $40, around $40. They have some on Amazon, and they have some on eBay. So you can buy it either on Amazon or on eBay. There's the version 2. This is the 2. There's a version 3, which is a newer version with, I think it has an IQ output. But these are not very expensive, and you can get one there. Then it's all the question of setting it up so that it works. But, you know, that's kind of cool. Svetlana Rodriguez, nice to have you here. People should embrace technology. SDR helps to advance the hobby. Absolutely. Absolutely. Driver from Shortwave, you get the same in amateur radio. They won't touch DMR or echoing because it's not real radio. You know, if there's some radio waves involved, it's a radio. It's a radio. And that's it. You know? I can tell you that. So, I'm a little far behind, guys, but I'm coming through. Danny, Shortwave Radio DX, nice to have you on board from Yonkers, New York. Really nice to have everybody here. Really, really cool. KC9KUH, what screen capture software to use? On this machine, the only one that works is Cam Studio. If you do download Cam Studio, it's extremely important to understand, to answer, and look at the setup. Because that software, Cam Studio, has one major problem. It has tons of crap that wants to install with it. So if you do use Cam Studio, make sure that you actually decline the offers, all the offers, so as you not get 8 new pieces of software crap on your PC. One that is pretty good, if your computer can handle it, it seems to work better with more modern machines. OBS Studio is a great one. That works fine for screen capturing also. OBS Studio. Oscar Bravo Sierra. OBS. And it's I've used that for my screen captures for my Windows channel. Works really great. And it's a little tricky to set up though, but it works great. Dan Walsh says the gap narrows between SDR and web SDR, or do I fool myself? Actually, what's happening is, and we got to be careful with software-defined radios. One of the things about software-defined radios is that a lot of people tend to think it's linked to the internet. And yes, there's some SDRs online. Basically, when you listen to online receivers, you know, you can get fooled and think that it's an internet thing. One of the questions I did get was, well, you know, these SDRs, I don't know why, because you use the internet. No. If my PC here was off the internet, it would still work with my ephedry. It's not an internet thing. It has nothing to do with the internet. Yes, there's online software-defined radios that you can tune from around the world, which is, by the way, a very cool thing. Because you can listen to signals from places that, you know, and from stations you'll never hear at home. But a software-defined receiver like this is an autonomous little radio. This is a radio. It just has one little thing. It connects to a PC. Because this is software-defined receivers. What do they have? They don't have buttons. No buttons on this thing. Except a little switch for the, you know, switching from HF to VHF, UHF. The buttons are on your screen. So a software-defined radio is a radio. It just needs your computer for the controls. That's it. No internet needed, nothing. So, you know. Jerry says, I had a dream once that I won an ephedry, an ICOM R8500, an official Shortwave channel shirt, and a ticket to Disney World. When I woke up, nothing. By the way, there are some t-shirts coming soon. That's why I have a white t-shirt here. I bought 100 white t-shirts to have them print out a shortwave, official Shortwave channel shirt. So in the next few weeks, you guys will be able to purchase one of those if you wish to have a official. And I'll of course show you guys the design. Right now I have one design, but I plan to have maybe 2 different designs for the t-shirts, and not just white. I want to have several colors, like, you know, light blue and you know, green and stuff like that. Mickey Delmash says early Sony 2010s were susceptible to zapping. Yeah, I remember that. I remember reading, I was part of the Quebec club at the time, and I remember reading someone that is Sony ICF 2001 or 2010, depending on where you buy it. The front end field effect transistors would actually die due to static discharge. Absolutely. So, yep, OBS is great. It's totally free and it works fine for screen capture. Yeah, OBS is great. Try OBS. I use OBS now. I used to use the Cam Studio like I use here, but since I've started using OBS Studio, I'm not moving that. The only reason why some computers like this one still have Cam Studios because OBS on this one crashes. So when I try to do a screen record after about 30 seconds, it just crashes on me. So I got to keep using Cam Studio on this one. Yeah, there is a learning curve, absolutely, but OBS is great, and you can even do live streaming, absolutely. So yeah, official shortwave radio at gmail.com, Jet Simon, for the email. Steve says, Jill, you were the reason I got into SDRs. When you got the Soft 66, I bought one and never looked back. Still hooked up. It controls my VHF, UHF trunking and digital with a Disc Tap Pro 2035 and DSD Plus. Cool. You know, and I like that when somebody says, well, you know what? I've bought something because you talked about it and it looked cool and looked great. But, you know, it's fun, and I'm here for that. And I'm glad if I've helped people, you know, maybe enjoy their hobby more by promoting different hardware, different things that they can use. David in Barcelona, nice to have you on board, Raptor 22 Stealth. And thanks for the donation, by the way. And talking of donations, just a quick look at ways you can donate to me. And of course, it's hey, my I think I have the I just seen the my camera seemed to be in autofocus. I should remove that. So anyways, paypal.me/shortwave or at the Yahoo email that you see here is where you can send me donations through PayPal. You can become a donator also with the Patreon account. Patreon.com/radioandcomputers is a great place for giving monthly donations. And just be careful how you set it up because it's a little tricky. Honestly, I kind of prefer PayPal. So if you enjoy what I do, if you like what I do, please consider a donation. It is much appreciated. You know, like I always say, 2017 I would not have been here. I would not have been able to continue without donations when at some point around this time last year, the monetization was so crappy that I even had doubts of, you know, do I continue or not? And consider the fact that I do this and take a lot of time to prepare this and to do this for everybody. I, you know, do 3-4 hours streaming, which, you know, is demanding. I gotta say, one of the things that happens when I stop the stream after 3 or 4 hours is you sit down and you're like, woof, you know, there's like your body is just kind of, oh, now I can relax a little bit. So, you know, I take a lot of time. If you enjoy what I do, please consider a donation because it really helps me out tremendously. Thanks for everybody that donated. Those that can't, don't worry about it. You know, it's quite all right. It's quite all right. I do understand that. And I do understand that not a lot of people. If you have a choice of donating to me or eating tomorrow, you probably should eat and forget the donations to me, okay? I'll even forgive you if you purchase a new radio instead of giving a donation. You purchase yourself a nice little portable receiver. That's quite all right. So thanks for everybody that donated, by the way. Okay, back to our little discussion of software-defined receivers and everything. Anax Zagor says something special about tuning the knobs. Yes, I do agree with that. There is something special, and I mean, this is cool, but I gotta say, there's nothing sexy about this. But there's something really sexy about the ICOM ICR8500. Just is amazing, honestly. Donald Hosner says, I got a Com Radio CR1A standalone SDR, great for travel and backup here in the shack with his ICOM IC7200. If his ICOM IC7200 craps out. So it's, you know, it's kind of cool. And well, you know, TOT, you're not alone. You know, I except for the fact that I, you know, will see Sheldon, or Fastload has, which is one of my friends, is into the hobby a little bit. I mean, for years I didn't really have anybody that I knew that was a radio fan. Nobody was, I did not have anybody, I did not know anyone that was a shortwave radio listener. I felt alone, less so because if you were a member of a club, you didn't feel alone. But I felt alone as one of the weird people that do, shortwave radio listening, which was by a lot of people, including my brother, that was always telling me, "Oh, you're listening to those noises again. Oh, you like listening to static." It's like, yeah, you don't understand what this is all about. Don't mess with me, please. And basically, the internet is bringing us very close together. I mean, if we look at, you guys would laugh if you would see what I'm doing. I'm actually creating my own sangria with my juice and the wine, and while I'm actually talking about radio. So this is cool. This is a great example that the internet has a lot of positive stuff for us radio listener. Chris Freitas says he doesn't understand why people get upset over Wi-Fi radios. I got one. I've got a Sangean right there in the back. I got a Sangean WFR20, and I enjoy using it. I like it. It's a different thing. It's not what I consider radio. It's streaming stuff. It's like when I decide to stream on my phone, it's streaming over the internet. I don't call that a radio. I call that a multimedia device that streams, online streams of audio. But honestly, you know what? My WFR20, which has amazing sound, by the way, because it's on the same basics of the Bose speakers, it has such an incredible sound that, you find yourself not listening to any, I don't know, maybe that's an old-fashioned side of me. When I want to listen to CBC, local Canadian Broadcasting Corporation outlet here, I could, if I want, turn on my Sangean Wi-Fi internet radio and tune to the stream that is on the internet, and yeah, it works fine. But no, I still, take out a little portable receiver or any radio I've got and tune to 95.1 FM for the French one, or 88.5 FM for the English side. Simply, and it's crazy. MDK2 says, that was the thing that got me about Radio Australia. They were saving a whole 1.5 million Australian dollars, which the government could easily have covered. But even that senator who wanted to save it couldn't. There are some decisions, and I always say, and it's if anybody from a shortwave outlet around the world that's still on the air ever stumbles upon this, don't forget one thing: you don't know, and we don't know what's happening in your country once there's shortwave outlets out. And I always give the same example. Oh, Radio Sweden removed from shortwave radio. I was not going to the internet and saying, "Hey, I want to know what's happening in Sweden today." But with Radio Sweden, I knew what was happening. I knew what you guys in Sweden, were going through. It was cool. It made me learn about a lot of things of different countries. I take Radio Sweden as an example, but Swiss Radio International. I don't know what's happening in Switzerland these days. I have no idea. And I don't go on the internet and say, "Hey, I want to have the news of what's happening in Switzerland." You're like, no, it doesn't happen. It doesn't work like that. And the shortwave outlet is the true voice, the true international voice of any stations, David Elkin's been listening to a lot of pirate stations in the past week, surprised by the amount that come on between 6,900 and 7,000. There's a lot of pirates, and also we just Last weekend was the Global HF Buyer Weekend, so there was a lot of activity, absolutely. Alex Zagar says, without the internet, I wouldn't even know about the miracles of shortwave. And you know, how many people learn about shortwave by stumbling upon my feeds, my videos? How many people, you know, raise your hands. Anybody in the chat room bought his first shortwave radio because he stumbled upon my broadcast, my YouTube videos, my channel? Anybody in the chat room did that? And the K2 says, without the internet, I would likely given up on shortwave listening in frustration. I learned so much and have a lot of resource online. Absolutely. Absolutely. David in Barcelona says, without the internet, I would have not been able to learn about radio at all. So, you know, he's absolutely right, you know. Bill Mead, hey there. Nice to have you on board. And pretty cool to have you here. Chris Freitas says, among my circle of friends, not one of them is into shortwave, but one of them did borrow one of my radios to try finding spy signals. They'll listen online, especially on Spotify and podcasts, though. Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I've got a lot of people, actually, that... I got a lot of people that actually have gotten back into the hobby. I get a regular flow of emails from, hey man, I'm an amateur radio operator, and I got my license in 1960. I stopped in the 80s at some point, stumbled upon your videos, and just looked and found it so cool, and it reminded me, you know what, I still have my AM license. I have to get back into the hobby, and they set back up and they work again. They're back into their favorite hobby of amateur radio or shortwave listening. You know, some people sometimes, maybe they're not coming back, but they say, hey man, your shortwave channel brings back so many cool memories, you know. Skywave DXer, hey there, says shortwave died as a mainstream entertainment medium in rich countries, but if never died in poor countries. Absolutely not, because you gotta also understand one thing. It's easier and less costly to use one shortwave transmitter to cover your whole country than it is to cover with the FM transmitters that you gotta scatter everywhere on the territory. Plus the fact that, never forget, shortwave is not controlled by you know, it cannot be controlled by who you're sending it to. So meaning, if your country controls the media and you listen to the BBC or Voice of America, well, you still have a way on shortwave to get the real news, not the one that your government decides that you'll hear, because often that's the case on, you know, government-owned shortwave broadcasting. So, you know. Well, you're getting 13.7. Oh, really? Why don't I just try it out of curiosity here. There's a very weak carrier. I can detect it barely, but I haven't heard Voice of Korea in a while. Propagation was actually not too bad today. I got China Radio International around, what was it, about 1430 UTC. Direct from the Kashi transmitter side in China, which is for me exceptional. I usually hear the you know, the relays from Albania and so on. But I was amazed to receive it direct from China this morning. BC Loyaji, hey there. Mark Brando, nice to have you here. Says, good point regarding magazines, printed schedules versus internet sites. Is anyone a saver of past monitoring times issues? What do you plan to do with them? Declutter, recycle, or try to sell? I am lucky. On this PC, I actually have a full set. Somebody actually digitized the monitoring times, every monitoring times. I am the lucky guy that's got a folder in here, and I believe on my laptop, with all the monitoring times issues up to when it started in the 80s. And I just want to say, if you do fall on one of these old monitoring times, if you've been listening for a long time, go through it. You will be very nostalgic, I can tell you that. Judge Simon says, thanks to all for listening. We are into our second hour now. If you enjoy, yeah, he's Judge Simon is really a good a good contributor to helping me out here. And thanks for doing it. Yes, thumbs up. So no, they're not Fruit of the Loom. They're Gelden. I don't know how you pronounce it. Gelden. Because I wanted to have good quality t-shirts. They're quite good quality. I've actually, this one that I'm wearing right now, I actually put in a washing machine at least a dozen times. It's still as nice and as beautiful as the original. So I'm testing them out to make sure that I don't sell crap t-shirts. So Anax Sagar says, wow, it's actually because of this channel and all of its reviews and tops that I started listening to Shortwave. Didn't realize it. Cool. Yeah, Judd is my personal secretary. Absolutely. Oh, God. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Nice to have all of you here. And we're steady above 100. Raptor said, I had a small remaining amount in my account, which I normally use for internet purchase. So, thank you so much, David. It was much appreciated. Joe says today's alcohol has been covered. Alex Van de Pa, nice to have you on board, watching in the car. I hope you're not. I hope you mean listening in the car, because if you're watching in the car, well, I hope if you watch from the car that you're actually parked somewhere, as not to have an accident. You know, if I don't want to be responsible to see in the news that somebody died because he was watching a podcast from a Canadian guy on his cell phone. PA1SBM, nice to have you here. Fast Load, yes, talking about you. You had your ears were buzzing. Chris Phillips says, I've been thinking about picking up either the TVO V115 for recording shortwave content or one of the Kato emergency lantern radios that has pretty much everything like Bluetooth. You know, for recording shortwave content, you know, I think a good radio with a MP3 recorder or something like that. A-Col18, hello there, DB5HK, nice to have you here. Is there a big difference from the Yaesu FT891 TRX? PL digital filters and an SDR. Greets from Germany. I'm not fully aware of the capabilities of that Yaesu transceiver, but you know, some of these could be already software-defined receivers in a box, but having an SDR is interesting because it has so many capabilities, you know. Maybe K2 says, my wife can't stand to listen. I try to share things like behavior night on WBCQ with her, but she can't get past the static. You know, don't forget one thing. I think when you're a long-time listener of shortwave, what happens is that we filter it out now. Have you noticed, guys? Even in a noisy broadcast, our brain is now filtering out the noise. You kind of don't hear it. And you know what? I noticed that because one day somebody was here and I turned on the SDR, turned it off after an hour, and the first comment was, wow, that is so good on the ears that you just stopped that static. Yet for me, I was listening to Voice of America. For me, the static was kind of not there. My brain filters out the static somehow. But for most people, it is static, you know. For most people, it's static. And Syrian Willow, nice to have you here. Ernie Turner, good morning. Nice to have you on board from Australia, VK3DET. Nice to have everybody on board, I can tell you that. And pretty cool. Pretty cool. MDK2 says, knows someone who's interested in pirate radio, going to take her along when plan the expedition summer for pirates. Cool. Dan Walsh says, Joel, your enthusiasm rekindle a long lost passion dealing with NOIC concrete. Oh my. Yeah, you know, I try to stay as positive as possible. You know, it is easy to get down and sad about the shortwave hobby when you turn on your radio and you hear all that static and you don't see the bands that you used to see in the 80s or 70s that were full of signals. But we gotta go past that, honestly, and enjoy what is there. And there's still a lot. In one evening, I'm gonna tell you, in one evening, there's a lot of things you can listen to. A lot of things, and especially if you're open-minded and like to listen to all types of radio signals, it's surprising the amount of signals you still hear and the amount of things that you stumble across that, oh, look at that, you know, the other night. This week was an interesting week. I listened almost every evening this week, which hasn't happened to me in a long time. And almost every night I stumbled upon one broadcast or one transmission that was like, oh, what's that? I had a MarsNet, the U.S. Army MarsNets, in Olivia 32 1K mode. I was like, whoa, this is so cool, using Olivia digital mode. So you know, it's kind of interesting to see that there's a lot of things that you can still listen to. Yeah, just Simon. But you know what? What's interesting about jamming, when a government jams a transmission, it's not perfect. So, for example, when they jam Radio Marti from Cuba, a lot of times Radio Marti still gets there. It's still received. So it's not perfect. It's not like, you know, flicking a switch of the internet. I always give that example because it's one of the best examples. So, you know, all hell breaks loose. I can tell you one thing. Look at that filters of all the internet stuff that's going to stop the content we don't want, the governments don't want us to see. They're going to be easily turned on. On the shortwave side, even if they jam, it's not perfect. There's always days where the jamming is totally inefficient. John Young says, I turned a friend onto the hobby, and a couple of years later, Sony 2010 came to my door as a thank you. Oh, that's nice. That's nice. It's really nice. Bullfrog 89, nice to have you here. KD2CXU. Unfortunately, his antenna was brought down by a windstorm. That was on Wednesday. Did you get any of that at your end, Joel? Yeah, absolutely. We had wind gusts. I was looking at the weather at some point because it was really here when it's windy. It's, you know, I'm on the third floor of this building, which is the top floor, and when it's windy, it's windy. And yeah, you know what? The first thing I noticed is how windy it was, and I remember I looked at the weather for my area, and they measured a wind gust of like 100 kilometers an hour on the on that day. It was very, very windy. But my antennas, everything is okay. You know, my vertical antenna isn't much affected by the wind. It's mostly my shortwave antenna that might be, but it's holding on, and it held all through winter. It's a little saggy. It's a little loose. It hangs low. So I will need to go and kind of tighten it up a little bit for some reason. I was looking at how it's installed because it's a sloper, so it has an angle. It's, you know, it has a specific angle. So at the top part, it's in the corner of the roof on the third floor here. But at the bottom part, it's on a pole, a broomstick, if you want, that I actually clamped to the metal fence, and it's at the top of the broomstick on the east side of my of the backyard here, and it makes 22 meters, which is nice. But when I put it up, it was pretty tight. It was very tight. Now it's kind of hanging low a little bit. I don't know if the wire can, maybe with the time, kind of extend a little bit. I don't know. It's kind of weird. It probably have moved from what I believe. So I will be checking that out when it's a nice beautiful day and easy to go in the backyard. There's almost no more snow in the backyard, so I'm soon to be able to check it out. And maybe it's the broomstick could have moved a little bit, maybe. But you know, I think it's time to kind of put it back up correctly, and you know, fix it for the next year or two of listening. David in Barcelona says, I don't use the internet to listen to international broadcasters. I just listen to ones that still go on shortwave. This means lots of CRI, but I enjoy the station. To me, it's fine. Cool. Pretty cool. Take care, PLF Radio. It was nice to have you on board. Next show is next Friday the 13th. Friday the 13th. Bacon wrapped shrimps. That sounds kind of good. Really good. I'm having pierogies or something like that. Pierogies, you call it. It's a bag that I purchased of that's already there. That's already made, but they look good. So take care, my friends. I am very late in the chat. I know, Fazload. I got stuck when I was talking about SDR. That's why I'm late in the chat. So, you know. Steve says, my brain has a built-in noise reduction filter. Cool. Yeah, absolutely. I think it is. I think it is. Cuban Lady on 16180. And pretty cool to have all of you here. I'm going down slowly here, checking out if I miss out. Hey Sheldon, yeah, I'll be there tomorrow. The International Radio Report tomorrow, 14:30 UTC, CKUT FM 90.3 Montreal, with the live streaming on www.ckut.ca. That's gonna be a lot of fun to be there. I miss not being there. I actually find it really fun to be there, honestly. So it's really, really cool. Take care, Sheldon. It was always nice to have you here, as usual. See you tomorrow. The CKUT studios tomorrow will be really, really nice. Brett Wayne, KC2 and XP, nice to have you on board from Salamanca, New York. Pretty cool. Pretty cool to have here. So, yep. It's going to be fun to be there. iMapper says from Moscow, Soviets jam foreign voices all the time. Nevertheless, we could hear them. Yeah, that's what I say, you know. I mean, I remember in the 80s listening to stations like HCJB in Ecuador. And, you know, and many stations that were kind of jammed by the Russians back then. And they would still receive reception reports. So, you know. TOTR, sloper antennas, directional. Are they terminated with a resistor or not? Thanks. Not terminated with a resistor. So it's typically a east-west antenna that has an angle. At the upper end near my roof, there's a 9-to-1 balun on it. It is slightly directional, yes, so technically having several might improve, but the my sloper is about, I'd say it's about Jerry, I would need to measure it, but it's probably closer to a 45-degree angle at where it is. It's about a 45-degree angle. So it's slightly directional, but on shortwave directionality is relative because the signals are bouncing off the ionosphere and everywhere. They tend to kind of doesn't matter too much on the you know, the directional side. Yes, there probably would be, you know, stronger signals from certain parts of the world if I could have more than one, but in general it's not too bad. Yeah, pierogies. I don't know if you pronounce them like that, but that's going to be what I'm going to have. I've got actually two kinds. One is the basic standard ones with potato and spices. The other one is potato and bacon inside, which I'm curious to taste. And of course I bought everything, including the sour cream, to eat with that tonight. David says the cable can definitely stretch under its own weight, which by experience with my 12.6 meter wire can be substantial, and if it's under tension then even more, because I totally have the impression that it actually stretched. I totally have the impression that it totally stretched. Bill Me, do you have a ground wire on your sloper? It's on the I have a ground. It's kind of grounded to the metal shed that I have here in the backyard, and it's grounded through the where it enters the box with the 9-to-1 balun. I grounded the box basically. What else do we have? It's east-west direction, Jerry. It's pointing east-west, really exactly east-west by chance. It's east-west direction, totally. The highest part at the corner of the house here is in the west, and the east part is where it is lower. It's about 45 degrees, 40 to 45 degrees. I know that very, very, very long wires can become directional, but like I said, it's, you know, not necessarily that much of a problem for shortwave, at least for shortwave. AM DXer, Keegan, nice to have you on board from Northwest Arkansas. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Zach Antle, potatoes and bacon. That sounds good. It does sound really good. I haven't tasted them yet. They are pierogies. How do you say it? Pierogi? How do you pronounce it? I don't know how you pronounce it. But you guys know anyways what I'm eating. So I guess I had points there. But anyways, they are already made. There was I went to a grocery store that had like tasting. They were making us you know, taste doughs, and he said, oh well, you know, they're on sale and usually they're $10 a box, but now today, just today, they're $5 a box. So I said, so I tasted one, and you know, when you go to the grocery store and you're hungry, which is the worst idea in the world, you buy everything you see. And so I tasted it and said, tastes good. I'm going to take a box. And then I saw that next to it was a box with, oh, potatoes and bacon. That must be good. So that's pretty much it. So I'm going to try that tonight. Man. So it's 22 meters long, Jerry, about 75, roughly 75, 80 feet. It's 22 meters long. So, JT Meredith says there's a documentary called Empire of Noise on YouTube, which is all about jamming. Oh, I'll check that out. Pierogi. So, pierogi? A pierogi. Pierogies and pierogi. Because, you know, there's a Ukrainian festival here, and they call it, they have a different name for it. They call it Valenkiri or something like that. but it's actually pierogi, but Ukrainian style. I love those. When the Ukrainian festival comes here, I always go there because they have it's really the the women that go at the Ukrainian church that actually make them at home. So these are amazingly good. I can tell you that. Danny Shortwave Radio DX says, yes, my 100 feet of long wire outside stretched because of the weight and wet snow. So it's crazy. It stretches. Wires are stretching. Kind of interesting. Oh, God. Steve says, hungry shopping is dangerous. Absolutely. Hungry shopping equals I get, I buy everything that I see. It's the worst thing you can do. I can tell you that. So, is it still on? 16180? Yeah, it's there. It's not very strong here, but 16180, I do get HM01, the Cuban number station. Hey, I'm actually at the end of the chat now. I see the chat move in real time. HM01 hasn't QSY'd yet. We need to try to get a QSL card from that. That would be nice. HM01. PA1SBM, Alex, nice to have you on board in the shack. And yes, I was driving, and yes, I was watching as well. Oh, God. Don't do that. So you're watching the Shortwave Radio Show. We're already an hour 55 minutes into the Shortwave Show. We talk about radio, and today we're talking a little bit about software-defined radios. I want to mention one thing, because and that will make me go. That will make me go and wait in the chat room a little bit more. So I'll be far back again. HAARP, the experiments going on at the University of Alaska. HAARP has been going on and started yesterday, April 6th. They're going on until April 14th. That's next Saturday. And the best way to keep in touch, okay, guys, is with a guy called Chris Fallon. We're going to do twitter.com. I'm going to show you guys. So Chris Fallon is CT Fallon, which is Charlie Tango. So Chris Fallon, it's Charlie Tango, Foxtrot, Alpha, Lima Lima, Echo, November. If you follow this guy, he gives all the information about what they are going to do. So, for example, he just posted 6 minutes ago. He said, "Good evening, UT. It's partly absorby over Gakona, low absorption." So he says HAARP starts at 2200 hours UTC today. So that's in a few minutes. We're at 2200. Try to find it. Reply to this tweet with your best guessed frequency. So if you guys want to try it out, they are turning on the transmitter in a minute's time now. Try to find it, and basically let's try something different today. So I'll try to find and try to guess the frequencies it's on. I'm going to try something. I don't know. Yesterday they were using 9500 kilohertz a lot. So let's I'm going to put myself there and see if there's something that pops up in a minute's time. So that guy updates regularly. Yesterday evening I followed HAARP all evening. It was amazingly cool. The only frequency I can hear them was 9500 kilohertz, but they were using 3350, 3400 at some point, 9500, and so it's kind of cool to see that and to try to listen in. So they are doing experiments all week. If you want to follow, if you want to know what's happening, what frequencies they're using, whatever, please tune in to his Twitter account, Chris Fallen. His Twitter handle is Charlie Tango Foxtrot Alpha Lima Lima Echo November CT Fallen, and you will see his posts. And somebody told me the other day, I'm not on Twitter, I can't see that. Yes, you can. If you just put twitter.com/CTFallen, even if you're not on Twitter, you can still see his posts. So go and check him out. They're starting now. I guess they started transmitting now. So 2200 hours. And he updates the situation throughout the evening. So tonight, throughout the evening, you'll be able to see if you can hear the HAARP team doing experiments. And no, they're not controlling the weather. Okay? They're just heating up the ionosphere and doing experiments of all sorts. But they're not controlling the weather. Okay. So what else is there? What else is there? Let's check it out here. Let's check it out here. It's almost 2200. Yep, beer o'clock mountain time. I still have my homemade sangria thing here. AM DXing says, I have yet to see if I can get QSL cards from FM radio stations I received via Tropo. Most of them don't. Most FM and AM stations are so strapped on cash that they don't reply much. You know what? The best thing you can do, Keegan, if you want to QSL some of those, what I would recommend is make yourself a QSL card and put all the technical details. And what you could do is send them by mail, but make sure that you have a self-addressed stamped envelope for the reply so that it doesn't cost them anything. And just ask them politely, I received your station on that day and so on. This was the program I heard. Can you just, you know, sign my card to kind of let me know? A lot of AM and FM DXers actually do this, because a lot of AM and FM stations will not reply back because they're so much strapped on the money that basically they're, you know, not replying back most of the time. But I hope you do have replies. Yeah, Greece, 9420.
Διακριτικός και κοινωνικά σωστός τρόπος στο χειρισμό των θεμάτων που τους αφορούν. Το πιλωτικό αυτό πρόγραμμα θα ανακοινωθεί λεπτομερώς σήμερα, Παγκόσμια ημέρα μνήμης για τους Ρωμά. Τέλος, υπάρχουν ενδείξεις για Ισλαμιστική τρομοκρατία, δήλωσε χθες βράδυ ο Υπουργός των Εσωτερικών της Βόρειας Ρινανίας Βεσφαλίας, Νεχέα Μετρόη, σχετικά με την επίθεση με μήνυ λεωφορείων στο ιστορικό.
Cuban numbers has moved to 17480 apparently. Yeah. The digital hash 17480 is actually better than 16180 was. This is a Cuban number station with their broadcast. Hey B, nice to have you on board. Steve in Australia's got a very strong Asian station, 9500. So I don't know what and by the way, guys, I tuned to 9500, but he wants us to try to find where he is. So you know. What else is there? Yvonne says, don't send mail to station engineers at FM and AM station. That role no longer exists. Yeah. But most of the really hard, DXers that really wanted to have QSLs from these would usually make their own QSL cards and have them, send it out and really just honestly have self-addressed envelopes to make sure that it doesn't cost anything. Because stations today, they're so strapped on cash that it's almost impossible for them to reply without don't have the money for that, and don't have the resource also for that today. So Hal Hutchison, nice to have you here. Doing my first PC new build tomorrow, so I can run my ICR 8600 through HDSDR. That is cool. RCA 224. How well do the slinky antennas work? Well, you know what? There was a I don't remember which one. There's an online SDR that uses a slinky antenna, and I've seen a few people that actually were DX the world with a slinky antenna. I guess you got to try it. You simply got to try it. But of course, what's hard today is getting the metal slinky, because now they're selling only the plastic version. So you got to have the metal version for that. But I've seen some people listen to the world with these slinky antennas, I can tell you that. So it's pretty crazy. So I am making myself a little sangria again to fill up. And it's just funny. Singing 9505 9505 is
lost. I said, you mean you're stronger than God? You better be getting some checked out someplace. Get things straightened out. It's a wonderful, I love to preach. It's such a wonderful
World Harvest Radio 9505 if WHRI in the United States, for those that wonder. What else is there here? Random Clowns has got singing at S8 plus 10, S10 on 9505. Steve says no grease, CNR 6, China National Radio on 9420 over there. AM DXing says dead carrier on 11760, which is usually Radio Van in Cuba. There's something very weak, I gotta say. So yep, just started broadcasting for HAARP, but you gotta find a frequency, so I don't know what frequency it is. Kevin Walkowski, nice to have you here. Craig C, 17480, some tones and voice. Yep, that's HM01, the Cuban number station. Mike DeVita, hey there. We are not going to do trivia again, are we? What is the... Yeah, Craig C, it's the way that Cuba does its number station. Voiced Spanish numbers, then some kind of a digital transmission that goes with it. Kind of interesting way of doing a number station. Adesh Manar Ram Kisun, hello there, nice to have you here. Pretty cool to have you on board, as we are doing the Shortwave Radio live show, 2 hours and 8 minutes into the show now. Kind of interesting and pretty cool to have all of you here and listening in, or checking in, as we are broadcasting over the internets. And Richard Cook's got 11760, no audio with very strong carrier. Okay, other questions that I want to say, because somebody yesterday, okay, and that's a very good one. So somebody yesterday said, okay, you posted it, because what I did yesterday is share Chris Fallen's posts about the HAARP transmissions, and I mentioned CW mode, and I mentioned I was hearing Chris Fallen. Hey, Radioactive, nice to have you here. So I was listening in on 9500 kilohertz CW, and somebody said, CW? Isn't that Morse code? Well, CW is not Morse code per se. It's a mode of transmission, continuous wave. And what came up is, okay, but I don't have CW in my receivers. How do I tune that? When you see a post somewhere about a signal being CW, so for example, if I posted yesterday 9500 CW, if you don't have CW, and most people don't on portable radios and so on, tune in single sideband mode, and if you have a portable radio, play with the BFO wheel, and you'll see that you'll hear the tone, or you'll hear the Morse code, or whatever. If you have a separate upper-lower sideband, use upper sideband and go 1 or 2 kilohertz below. So for example, if you had upper sideband or USB available, go to 94, 98 and tune upper sideband. You're going to hear the tone. So I some people were kind of a little bit mixed up with all that information. And it's like, yeah, I do understand why maybe you can get mixed up, because a lot of people were tuning in, and it happens regularly, by the way. Because in one of the Facebook groups, by the way, somebody said, "Oh, I'm using a Countycom GP5, and I tried at some point yesterday was broadcasting on 2 frequencies, 3400 and 9500 kilohertz." And he said, "I don't hear anything." And somebody in the chat room said, "Well, it's super strong on 9500." And it then came to me, "Oh, you're using the Countycom GP5. If you put yourself in on 9500 in upper sideband or whatever mode, you got to move away. You got to move down or up the frequency." So I actually came back and I said, "Oh, tune 9498 and put your Countycom GP5 in upper sideband." And that's where he came back a few minutes later and said, "Hey, I hear it." And that's where the technical details, we got to be careful when we post something. It's easy when you actually have more knowledge to forget the details of, yeah, but most people don't have CW on their receivers. So that means you got to listen in. And the trick is very easy. If you see a post, say an amateur radio station has a post of 3505 kilohertz CW. Well, if you don't have CW mode on your receiver, tune 3504, 3503 upper sideband, or you can also use lower sideband but tune up at 3501, 3506, sorry, 3507. So a couple of kilohertz off upper lower sideband will give you the signal. It's easy to just not see that you're just giving the information in a way that a lot of people don't understand it, because not everybody has a receiver that has dedicated CW mode on it, for example. So you just tune off by a little bit, by a couple of kilohertz, and put yourself in upper sideband or lower sideband. Oh man, it's not always easy to to say, and to explain that, and there's so many little details in all of that. Richard says 20 meters still open here in the UK. Yeah, as we're going to get into summer, Richard, 20 meters is going to be open 24 hours. I am a big fan of, in the summertime, big fan of listening to the 20 meter band late in the evening, hearing all the European stations, or even sometimes the even sometimes the Asian stations coming in, because going through the pole, which is in daylight, permanently in daylight in the summertime, enables us to receive on a 20-meter band pretty much 24 hours. Kevin Walkowski says, thank you very much, and it's a pleasure to offer this and be here and help out and talk about radio. And like I like to say quite regularly, it's cool because we don't feel alone, because we see that there's tons of other people that enjoy the radio hobby, and that's the cool thing about these live shows, honestly. Steve says, normally the CW option in radios is still USB, but a narrow filter. Yeah, it's a very narrow filter, but it does shift the frequency. So that's why when you're in USB, you don't hear it anymore. Weighted Cube, hey, nice to have you here. Joe Peachy says 9760 strong in Virginia, which is, I believe, Radio Romania. Yeah, it's not very strong here, but it's there. 9760. I always get it wrong because it's reversed there. So Radio Romania 9760 kilohertz in English. And nice to hear it. No, it's Radio Romania International. I don't know what frequency HAARP is actually using, honestly. And let's go back to Chris Fallen's posts and see if okay. 10-minute on, 5-minute off CW O mode, and he's not mentioning the frequency. Started at 2205. Name that frequency. Wow. Somebody says 4440 CW. Anybody's hearing something on 4440? Let's try it out here. 4440 CW mode. I ain't got nothing there. Anybody can we'll try to see if anybody can detect and see what frequency they're. So we got to guess the frequency today. That makes it harder. If it uses the same frequency as yesterday, it might not be that difficult, but you find the frequency. Okay. I don't know. Kind of interesting here. Wondering what frequency they're using for HAARP tonight. Oh God. 7780 Radio WRMI. Steve says it's strong in Australia. Wow. Hurricane OM7AHU. Nice to have you here. Have you heard anything about the South Pacific anomaly? If it affects the shortwaves or possibly DXing? It seems scientists doesn't know enough about it, or they don't want to say. Yeah, the Pacific anomaly, I know. It's in astronomy and geophysics. It's a part of the Pacific Ocean that doesn't actually react the same way as the rest of the planet in the geomagnetic field. The Pacific anomaly actually has a very weak geomagnetic field compared to everywhere around it on Earth. And you know what? So it's an effect that is about the geomagnetic field of Earth and everything. Does it have, or can it affect shortwave? Who knows? Maybe it's not impossible. It's not impossible, but it's definitely something that we know about. I mean, as I'm an astronomy fan, and a science fan, so I often will, have articles about this, and it is something. Does it have an effect? I don't know. If you take the fact that it has an effect on the geomagnetic field, maybe. I don't know. Hey guys, somebody just want to say hi. Just going to remove this from here. So somebody wants to say hi. Mr. Paul the Cat says hello to everybody. And hope you enjoy his little look. Yeah, definitely the autofocus is on. I need to shut it down. So, but, honestly, does it have an effect on propagation? I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. And I'm not sure anybody really knows, honestly. Radioactive. We are having strong winds here, and we had a power outage, but not for him. Yeah, we had a lot of wind this week. It was crazy the amount of wind we got here, I can tell you that. Muglone, nice to have you here. Radioactive says, I have a Skywarn net activation as we speak. Huh, interesting. MDK2 says, I gotta slide something on 4440, but I have so many weird little things in that range that I can't say for sure it's HAARP. Yeah, but it's supposed to be on 10 minutes, off 5 minutes. So if it has that pattern, it might be that. Weighted Cube, apparently HAARP started, yep, 18 minutes ago. They want us to find a frequency, honestly. Robert Bersgay, or G, or whatever. What is the old radio behind you? Love vintage radios. Robert, that, so let's just put it here, back here. This is the Grundig Satellite Transistor 6001, or AKA the Grundig Satellite 210, which is a gift from Fastload, by the way. And it's a 1969 receiver. Actually, I was listening to it all day today. It is an amazing radio for the time period. This is truly an amazing work of technology from Germany. Really, really crazy. Has AM, long wave, shortwave. It's a it's for the time it's rare. It's one of the portables that has a full general coverage receiver. It has up to 30 megahertz in reception. It is amazing, and of course it has the FM band. An amazing sound, by the way. It's an amazing radio. Try 4555CW. 4555CW. I got nothing there. Yesterday when they were actually doing the tests, 9500 I would hear, but everything below 5 megahertz I was unable to hear at all. Weighted Cube says he's getting reports. Oh, it's the South Atlantic. It's not Pacific, it's Atlantic, Cosmic Lettuce. So you can confirm. If there's one guy that probably confirms this is Cosmic Lettuce with your astronomy stuff. It's the South Atlantic anomaly, right? And it's funny because I had Atlantic in my mind when I was talking about it. So 2750 apparently. Some reports are saying 2750, which is totally possible. I got nothing there, and like I said yesterday, everything below 5 megahertz, I did not have anything at all. So Cosmic Lettuce is a place where the Van Allen belts dip into the upper atmosphere. Don't know much a bit more about that. Sorry, definitely affects instruments on spacecraft. Yeah, I know there's the anomaly. I know that it affects totally the geomagnetic field. It is a known thing. I've read an article not even a month ago about it. I think it was on space.com. But there's not a lot known about it, honestly. There's really not a lot of things known about it. It's one of those mysteries of our planet, honestly. So Weighted Cube says should be on now. 4 more minutes before it goes off. TOT. Anyone know who is playing music on 40 meter band 7210? Yeah, 7210 is, I believe, CRI, China Radio International. So 7210, let's go into here. Let's type 7210. And 7210 is, at this time, 2225. China Radio International in Spanish to South Europe from the Albania transmitter site. So it's China Radio International in Spanish from the Albania transmitter site, Tio. Hey, VA2XMX Petro, nice to have you here. Happy Saturday, of course, to everybody. Hey, take care, Donald Hausner. Nice to have you here. Next show is Friday. Yeah, it's South Atlantic. South Atlantic. You know, it might have, honestly, it might have an effect on propagation of radio signals. I don't know. I've never read anything about that aspect of the South Atlantic anomaly, honestly. V2XMS is sitting here with my little one, trying to get her hooked early on everyone. Say hello to Antonia. Hey, Antonia. 2 years old. Hello. Hey, Antonia. Nice to have you here. It's kind of cool. We're maintaining our above 100 viewership pretty much, eh? So, anyways, in other news, somebody was asking me if I had to give a few basic software-defined receiver, you know, comments, or what would I, you know, propose as a software-defined radio for different price ranges. So just checking out here, Radio Romania 7315.
They wife to Prince Barbaros. They encouraged translation work and translated a children's book herself. Then there were wives of the Romanian personalities involved in the 1848 revolution, such as Maria Rossetti. If they read the diary and correspondence of politician C.A. Rossetti prior to his meeting his future wife, Mary Grant, would find out that he was looking for a partner. This is exactly the word he uses, a partner with whom he could
for Radio Romania.
This was a revolutionary idea.
7315 kilohertz, and also heard by Richard Cook in the UK. So if I had to give out a basic low price you know, software defined receiver, a mid-range, and a more advanced, what I would probably say is in the basic form. And if you want to know if you like SDRs, try an RTL SDR little you know, USB stick, $10. You're not losing a lot. If you don't like it, you just, you know, it's $10. If you want to be a little more advanced, a soft 66 RTL like this one, around $40. And this one has, you know, has the capability of shortwave, which the basic RTL SDR does not have. And in a little more advanced, 100, maybe $150, something like that, the SDR Play RSP 1 or 2 are great choices also for software defined receivers, for sure. VA2XMS says she can't read yet, obviously, but I'm sure she feels the good vibes. Yeah, you know, good people, good vibes. It's always fun and nice to have everybody here, and, you know, have the little family and everything. It's kind of cool. Okay. What other question I've got is from Franco, and he is asking, he's in he's near the Great Lakes in Ontario, and he's asking if I had, because he got a new receiver, so he purchased a Texan PL 600. And he says he's got a lot of difficulty listening to any stations, and he wants to know, do they, is there any easy catches that I can probably give him for an evening of radio listening? So, okay, easy catches. There's Voice of Turkey, 9830, which is, I believe, on right now. Let's check out if it's there. 9830. Voice of Turkey is on right now. It's not super strong tonight. Usually it's better than that. So 9830, 2200 hours UTC, which for Ontario means 6 p.m. There's also Radio Romania that broadcasts in the evening around 01, 0200. Let's just check the schedules here. I don't have them by heart. So Radio Romania is an easy catch for pretty much everybody. And let's just do this here. Romania. So Radio Romania in the English is 0100 to 0100. That's for you in Ontario. 8 to 9 p.m. tonight. 7375 and 9730. That should be an easy catch in general. So that's another station. WBCQ is a nice catch, usually 7490 and 5130, pretty much all evening. You also can listen in to WRMI's different frequencies. 5850 kilohertz is coming in pretty well here, so I mean, for somebody in Ontario, it should probably be pretty good. 5850, 7780, 9395. Listen through the evening. They have various programming. Radio Ukraine, Radio Prague, Radio Slovakia, RAE Argentina. Tune around, and all sorts of programming like Voice of the Report of the Week, Glenn Hauser's World of Radio. Check it out. You should hear some of these. If you don't at all, I suspect you have a lot of noise where you are listening in. So maybe you want to go outside to try to move away from houses and go into a park, take a walk to a park, something, and try it out. Maybe it's the noise that's preventing you from actually getting all of these stations. Richard Cook, Maglone, will they work on a Chromebook? I have not seen anyone have a software-defined radio work on a Chromebook, so I don't know if anyone or any of them can work on a Chromebook, honestly. I've not seen anybody. It works on it will work on a Linux machine, a Windows machine, a Mac, but a Chromebook I don't know. What is there here? Gander. Richard Cook is receiving Gander weather on 10051 upper sideband. Let's check it out here. Can I hear it? Oh, I hear 6604. It might have stopped though. I think it stopped at 30. I'm not sure. Steve says, stupid HAARP. How they are on many million frequencies, 2 and 10 megahertz. How's anyone going to find a needle in a haystack? You know, that's the biggest problem. When I saw him say, hey, try to find us, problem is, it's a very huge spectrum for a signal, you know. Scott Cullion says, my son was curious about the nature of FM ducting. He has been watching along with me today. Apparently, he was catching some distant stations last night. Oh, kind of interesting. There's a lot of interesting propagation characteristics for different frequency ranges that are just amazing when you're looking at all of that. Bill Mead says, Mr. Son, Cameron wants to know what kind of keyboard are you using? This is a Logitech. The model number is the K400R. So this is the Logitech K400R that you could see is totally worn out on the pad here. And wireless works great, and for using that type of screen, and for example, when my laptop was on my big screen TV in the living room, it's very, very nice. Very little lag, very little. If you're using it to game, it actually is pretty amazing because there's very little lag with it, and it is not very expensive. I don't remember the price I paid. I think it was 35 Canadian dollars for it, and I've seen it recently. I know they have a more advanced version, but the K400R by Logitech is what I am using right now as a wireless keyboard. RCA224 says, using my Texan PL600, I find it works better on batteries than it does on the adapter. Too much noise coming through. That's very important. You know what? Thanks for mentioning that, because honestly, some of these come with adapters that you put in the wall to listen in and power it from the wall. I never use these adapters, because the problem with these adapters is that they bring in a lot of the noise from your electricity outlets. And if you use a Texan PL600 or any portable radio, use that with batteries. Use it with batteries. It's the only way you'll have the least amount of noise. So, 2 Hands on the Radio says generic RTL 2832 plus R820T dongle on Chromebook. So apparently, probably works. If the basic does work, I mean a soft 66 will work, which is the same base, should work. 2 Hands on the Radio says using a software for Chromebook called Radio Receiver. So thanks for the input, 2 Hands on the Radio. Really nice. Buzzer's very strong, says Richard Cook over there. Steve says Australian coastal weather on 8176 upper side, man. I don't think I can hear that here, but let's try it out. You never know. Life sometimes. 8176. Nope. Not the time of the day for the correct frequency for Australia. And 8113 also, if anyone wants to hear Australian. The closest that I've ever been was 2 years ago. I was able to receive New Zealand weather on the 16 megahertz frequency late in the evening, one evening. I was like, whoa, I can hear it. But I haven't been able to hear it again since. Robert says, Ethan Field, BT Radio, would I be better served with an SDR dongle on my PC? It's two different things, okay? And a SDR like this, not the basic dongle, but more of a like a soft 66, you would have more flexibility to what it can do. It has all modes. It has a lot of flexibility on the tuning and viewing the signals and everything. So I would say that this probably performs better, even if it's just a $40 thing. The Soft 66 probably performs better than your Ethon radio. But it's two different things. And one of the aspects of software-defined receivers that might be a little bit of a problem is noise generated by your computer that go into the device. And that is not to neglect. You might have a lot of noise going into your computer, to your radio, sorry, from your computer. That could be a problem. And it's two different worlds. I think there's portable receivers and receivers in general. There's SDRs or software-defined receivers. It's really different things, honestly. But you could have both and have fun playing around with both. The only thing is that it remember that what I was about to say, I lost my field of thought here. God, I forgot. Anyways, you can have both, and you know it's great. Oh yeah, the only thing I want to mention is the fact that you know have a little bit of computer knowledge to use them, because they're not just, you know, out of the box plug and play things. It doesn't really work like that. So if you're not good with computers, it's not necessarily a good idea. Also, Keegan's got WW on 5,000 kilohertz or 5 megahertz. It's been coming in really well in the evening here. 5 megahertz was like probably the best frequency yesterday evening. It was amazing how well it came in on 5 megahertz. No, I did not radioactive. I did not buy another Soft 66. This is something I got in the mail this week. That somebody actually, it's a viewer that bought an SDR play and said, "Hey Joel, you want to have my Soft 66? I'm going to send it to you for a raffle." So I said, "Well, send it in, and I'll see if I do a little raffle and send it to the lucky winner." So got another Soft 66 here. Pretty cool. Steve in Australia is asking, what frequency band would you most likely hear Australia right now? Higher frequencies, 19 meter band above, you know, I'd say above 15 megahertz. Typically, this is the time of day here in Montreal where, for example, the 20 meter band would be good to Australia, or you know, like Japan and these different places. So you know, probably like 14 or 15 megahertz and above. You know, this was when Radio Australia was on the bands at this time of day. That 17840 frequency was a good one for here. Robert Sutherland, hi Joe, how do you set up the keyboard to change the frequency on your SDR? Well, it's a keyboard. So basically it's a wireless keyboard. It has a little dongle that is plugged into the laptop in the back of, not the laptop, a desktop computer in the back. So that SDR is running on a desktop computer, which is an HP desktop. It's behind the screen. You don't see it. So it's basically just a wireless keyboard. It's like changing the frequency off of on the computer. It's just that this is a wireless keyboard. That's it. It's not linked directly to the SDR. It's really the computer running the SDR that I'm actually controlling with this. MDK2, hey Butterbean, nice to have you on board from Georgia. MDK2 says, when Radio Australia was still on, 17.480, was always a solid copy here in North America. Like in the morning. In the morning is a reverse. You know, in the morning, lower frequencies. So in the morning, there's in the morning we will have, you know, 9580 was great, or even the 49 meter band was great. You know, 6 megahertz. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Yeah, radioactive. It is cool. What is there about? I think New Zealand is on 19 meter now. Yeah, it's I think they're on. Is what frequency is for a few more minutes? What time is it? 13730. I don't know if I can hear that. New Zealand. Nope. Very weak carrier with nothing really. 15720 will be a good one at later tonight. Usually a late evening here in Montreal. 15720 from I'd say from about 02 to 0 to the end of the broadcast at 0500. 15720 for New Zealand isn't too bad, honestly. It's one of those frequencies that's pretty good. Question also that I got, and it comes from Jadia Imaya. I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. He says, why do stations have these little tunes playing before their broadcasts? I've heard many of them before, and I've always wondered why they would do that and repeat the same little tune again and again. What are they? They're called interval signals, and interval signals are there because in the, especially in the past, today they're not as useful as they used to be, yet they can still be very useful. So remember, let's go back 30 years, 40 years from now, and imagine people have a shortwave radio. So you know, 40 years, 30 years from now, I had this. This is an analog dial. So that means that that analog dial is not very precise in its frequency. So on a station, when I wanted to listen to a station, the way that you do it is you got to find that little interval signal tune. If you knew which tune was associated with which station, well, when that station went on the air, you would go a few minutes before and tune around your analog radio in order to find what station was on the air, and in order to find your favorite station also. So you would just tune around until you found that little tune that repeats itself, that say, oh, this was Radio Berlin, this was Radio Romania, this is, you know, and you know that you're in the right frequency for the station you want to listen to. So interval signals are there because of that. Find me before the broadcast starts. And so by having a very unique little tune that repeats itself, if you want to try to find, say, Radio Romania in the evening, well, you take your portable analog radio and you tune just before the show starts until you find that tune that you know is that Radio Romania. So it's very useful to find the stations across the bands. So it's you know, it could still be useful. It's not as useful for somebody like me because you have digital displays on all the radios. But somebody that has an analog radio, you know, it could still be something that is very useful. And I'm sure in Asia and Africa, you know, of all the listeners there, I think they still probably find that it's very useful to have one of those available. There's Daryl K that is asking me, actually saying he's all mixed up in what the hell is meters and kilohertz, and I'm all messed up. What band is what is, you know, 20 meters in megahertz or kilohertz or whatever. How can I find out? Okay, it's a simple calculation. So frequencies have an equivalent have an equivalent meter band that we call, because every frequency has a wavelength. So if you want to understand what kilohertz or what megahertz, remember this simple rule. In megahertz, just take 300, which is the speed of light. And now I'm rounding it, okay, because it's not 300 exactly, or 300,000 kilometers per second. It's like 299,000 something. But rounding it is quite alright. So in megahertz, 300 divided by the frequency in megahertz is going to give you the meter band. So for example, okay, and let's do a little math on the calculator here. Calculator. So, in the calculator here, if I put 300 and I divided by 14 megahertz, it equals 21.4. So you're like, that's what we call the 20 meter band. It's of course rounded up. It's 21 meters at 14 megahertz. It rounds up to 20 meter band. if you're in kilohertz, it's 300,000. So for example, let's do another one here. If I want to know 7,200 kilohertz, what's the meter band? In kilohertz, then you'll use 300,000. I got 3 million here, I think. Wait a minute. Okay. 300. Whoops. 3,000. Whoa. Okay. 30, 300, 3,000, 30,000, 300,000. And I divided by 7,200 kilohertz. It equals to 41.6 meters. It's also the way that you can actually use to calculate the antenna length if you want to resonate, if you have a resonance. So basically, that's how it works. It's simply to remember, just remember that, 300 divided by the frequency in megahertz is going to give you the meter band, or 300,000 divided by the frequency in kilohertz is going to give you the same meter band also. And that's how they can calculate the length of an antenna so it resonates with the frequency you're listening to. Butterbean says WW2 sub, World War II submarine 14255.5. So they have some kind of net, I would guess. Let's see here, 14255. Oops, 14255. There must be some kind of net, I guess. Not hearing anything here right now, but probably some kind of net for World War II submarines and stuff. Hey, let's for last time do a little promotion. If you want to help me out, remember that PayPal donations are welcome. PayPal.me/shortwave. You also will have the Patreon account right here. Patreon.com/radio and computers. If you enjoy what I do, if you enjoy the fact that I take a lot of time to do this, and you have a lot of fun joining us every week, why not, share and help me out in donating a little something. It's always appreciated. So let's go back to our friend Chris Fallon here with the HAARP team and see if anything has shown up here. So what is there? What is there? So 4440 kilohertz is apparently the frequency. So exactly 10 minutes off, 5 minutes off. 4400 kilohertz is the frequency, and they're going to be on 4400 up to 2300 hours UTC. That means they're going to have a new frequency in a few minutes probably that are going to check out. So apparently HAARP right now is on 4400 kilohertz. 4400 kilohertz. It's 10 minutes on, 5 minutes off, kind of a pattern that they're doing right now in CW mode. Don't forget, you don't have CW mode, tune in to the frequency, tune into 1 or 2 kilohertz below, and put your radio in upper sideband, and you'll be able to hear it for sure. Anybody has questions, anything they want to add before we slowly shut down for tonight? We're going to be at 3 hours in just a couple of minutes. Going to stay here till the 3 hours and shut down slowly on tonight's show. Don't forget, tomorrow, if you want to listen to the International Radio Report at ckut.ca, ckut.ca, 14:30 UTC live, I will be part of the of the team with Sheldon and David. Will be there at CKUT tomorrow. I will be talking. I have a little, I have some, of course, comments and discussions, and we will be, of course, talking about You know, I'll try to talk about a little bit about radio, so it'll be interesting. Apart from that, you can also listen to the CKUT.ca archive, which is usually on a couple of, like on Mondays, about a day after the official broadcast. Richard, have you heard other time stations? You know what? I've been, when I heard the buzzer, Richard, this week, one of the stations that came to mind was RWM in Moscow, and I tried frequencies, but I've not heard anything. Let's try 9996 for the fun of it. 9996, nothing. For 996 either. Nope. So I've not really heard any other time stations except WWV, honestly. And let's just see if there's going to be an announcement of any other frequency for HAARP tonight. It would be nice to see if there's other things happening with the HAARP team. Nothing new announced right now. Let's wait for the next 5 minutes left and see if it's gonna be. Yeah, but 14996. Yeah, I'm gonna try it, Richard, because I always say try the frequencies, even though you don't think it's gonna be there. So 14996. There's nothing there either. I can hear WWV slightly, I believe, on 15 megahertz. Yep. 15 megahertz says WWV. Nothing much on 10. So I'm pretty much hearing only 15 megahertz. There's CHU on 3330. Not really hearing 7850. It's kind of interesting. It's WWV, WWVH down 15 megahertz. Oh, really? Radioactive. Well, you know, I hear it from time to time, and it's about the time of day where you should hear it usually. WWVH from Hawaii, I would say. Weighted cube has 7780. That frequency from WRMI has not been very good here, honestly. It's there tonight. You can hear it tonight. 7780. But it's not super good. It's not one of those good frequencies from WRMI. I miss 11580, which was for me the best frequency for WRMI. Steve is hearing 7780 in Australia. That's amazing. I have, you know, difficulty receiving it here, and he's getting it in Australia. Propagation for you. What do you mean? That's life. So let's check out if there's any announcements of another frequency or something by Chris Fallen for the anything new? Nothing right now. Don Monin VE6JY has 4440. He says 4400, but it might be 4440. Everybody's mentioning 4440. So I guess it's 4440 that it was on. So anything new? Anything new? Let's check it out here if anybody is mentioning a change in frequency for the HAARP tests, and listen through the evening, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot more happening. A lot more happening. Okay, next, soon after 2300, simultaneous 2-frequency transmission separated by 1 megahertz. Find the frequencies. So they're going to do, well, this is hard, trying to find these frequencies. Trying to find these frequencies is kind of hard. So they're going to be on 2 simultaneous frequency transmission separated exactly by 1 megahertz. And that's starting pretty much now. So if you guys want to try and find them, that's what's happening. Cosmic Lettuce, what is HAARP testing? It's testing different things, honestly. It's testing propagation characteristics, but it has such a high power transmitter that it also tests like heating up the ionosphere to see if it can enhance propagation or change propagation characteristics of the ionosphere. So it is amazing. They have like megawatts of power output in there. It's crazy. Bobby Burgess, Mighty KBC in 1 hour. What's the frequency for Mighty KBC tonight? Anybody can share it if you want to listen to Mighty KBC at 0-100 hours UTC. Maglo says a storm will hit Lake Okeechobee in Florida, WR location. Yeah, probably a thunderstorm or something. They always have storms there. Anyways, thunderstorms of all sorts. Somebody, hey, nice to have you here on in Newfoundland. He's got 7780. So 5960 for KBC, Mighty KBC tonight. Richard Cook's got Radio Rebelde in Cuba on 5025. Steve says trying to find parallel universe. Yeah, on an SDR it might be possible though. If I, say I find a carrier on some frequency, it might be possible on an SDR because if I put 1 megahertz range, I might be able to see the 2 parallel signals, but it's kind of really difficult. Keegan's got WWV 10 megahertz at S3, 5 megahertz at S3 also. Pretty cool. So new tweet, let's check it out. Let's check it out. Chris Folland, and latest information is check it out. So of course they're on parallel frequencies, 1 megahertz apart. Somebody has replied here. So let's check this one. I have a feeling one is 9400 kilohertz. Let's check out 9400 kilohertz. 9400. I got nothing there. 9400. And 1 megahertz apart, so it has to be 8400 for the other one. Well, that's kind of hard trying to find those frequencies, honestly. We'll try to find them and see if we can hear them. Radio Havana Cuban 5040, absolutely. Steve says cooking chickens with the megawatts. Yeah, pretty much. So hey guys, I'm going to say goodbye for tonight. We've been on for 3 hours, and it's been 2 days in a row, so 6 hours and 30 minutes of shows pretty much in 2 days. How cool is that? We're going to be back Friday, 2000 hours UTC, with our next show. Friday the 13th. Anything can happen. And hope you enjoyed today's show. It was always a lot of fun to be here. Good night, everybody. And, tune in to radios. I'll be tuning mine all night tonight. I'm going to have a lot of fun with that tonight. Peace, absolutely. And stay safe, everyone. Curtis Bazar Jr., nice to have you on board. Thank you for being here. And always nice to be here. Craig C says, thanks for a great show. Also tips on SDR radios. I'm looking at maybe getting an SDR plate. Thanks. Have a good night. Cool. Crossley Fiverr, nice to have you here. Pro 2006, any use these days? I have one in the closet. There's still a lot of stuff to listen to on the VHF, UHF frequencies, Crossley. I would take it out of the closet and scan the frequency ranges. You might be surprised what you can hear in your neck of the woods. Still quite a lot to listen to, honestly. Take care, everybody. 73s. See you soon. Love you all. It's always cool to be here. And love you all. Bye. 73s, everybody.